Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson, and welcome to Introduction to Construction. This is lecture 6B, and we're going to continue on with our discussion on construction project management practices. Today we're going to be looking at quality control, quality assurance. We're going to be also discussing the aspects of project closeout and a number of other areas as well that comes into play in these areas. So we'll be looking at these fundamental processes that come forward. All right, so construction quality management. It's a big deal. We talked about this in one of our earlier lectures, I think lecture 2, and it's that interrelationship that takes place between time, cost, quality. We said there's 5 constraints in construction that we deal with, and you know what, this is standard project management nomenclature and points. If you're in IT, you would have time, cost, quality, scope. You wouldn't have safety necessarily, but for us, we do in construction, we consider all of these. And of course, one of these factors affects the other ones. So if we have poor quality, probably we're going to be redoing a lot of things. We're going to have a lot of warranty issues, and that's going to affect our profitability. Or if we have to redo things, that's probably going to mean that we're going to be behind schedule, which probably means we're going to rush things even more, and then we're going to have to redo them again because the quality level's not there. So quality has become an increasingly important area, and so much so that areas of construction and larger general contractors wide and over globally are adopting a lot of lean construction management practices. And lean really is about reducing waste and improving quality, improving value to the client. And so we have to make sure that we have programs in place to maintain certain quality levels. Now, are all construction projects done to lean standards? No. But do we have to have a quality control program, quality management program, quality assurance program in our projects? Yes. And so you think of quality management as kind of the overarching program, and underneath that you have quality assurance, and within quality assurance you have quality control. And so this becomes very important. And if we think about defining or separating the definitions of quality assurance and quality control, you should think about quality assurance is really sort of the processes that you've enabled in your company or on this, particularly on this project. You have certain ones in the company, and that's overarching to quality management. And then the big part of the circle underneath that is quality assurance, the processes that you have in place to assure that quality is going to take place. Quality control is the measurement of what's actually happening on your site, that it's meeting those requirements. You know, it's the inspections and testing of concrete and inspections of finishes or inspections of footings and those kind of things that come into play. That is part and parcel of your QA, QC program. So you want to make sure you've got very good processes in place, and that would include the training of your people, that you have systems and methodologies. And I think I've mentioned more earlier on that's, the comparison between goals and systems. Well, systems is really big in quality assurance. That's ensuring that we've got steps that we take that helps mitigate the chances that we're going to have a product that's going to fall outside the acceptable tolerances that have been identified on this project that would be shown and indicated in your specifications for the project. So construction quality management ensures that these things are taking place. It gives QA provides clear job scope definitions, specifications, spot checking, contract compliance, more about the systems, auditing actual work and test results. And it's really looking at the systems that you have in place from that perspective. You also may have the owner's representative consultant or outside third-party inspectors responsible for making sure that quality assurance is taking place. So like in the commissioning process, you have a third-party agent that comes in, and what they're doing is they're making sure that the building systems are operating the way that the design intended them to operate. So in quality control, well, you're responsible for making sure that you're completing the work in compliance with the contract specifications, and that you have a very clear quality control plan, and that you are ensuring that the trades are meeting the standards that are part of the quality assurance system that is in place. You want to find out very early on what are the requirements to be successful in having the work that you do pass. Because if it doesn't pass, it means you've got to fix it. If you have to fix it, that's going to be very detrimental to your cost structure and profitability. So very important from that point of view. And another topic here that we'll touch on because it relates to lecture 6A is delays. And in 6A we talked about changes, we just talked about quality control issues and rework, and these things all potentially lead to construction delays. So a delay can be defined in many different ways. And often in the contract, it may not even be that clear, but generally it's accepted that a delay is a delay to the critical path. All right. So that means it's delaying the project. You can have claims and delay claims that maybe it didn't delay the project, but it cost somebody money because something was delayed. That occurs as well. But generally, when we think about construction delays, we think about a delay that impacts the critical path, which means that your ability to complete the project on time has been infringed upon. And so as a result of that, there's usually a claim. And a claim is just an unresolved change. It's something that hasn't been signed off on. So in lecture 6A, we talked about change and getting a change order signed off. Well, we might see that there's a delay, and maybe the delay was caused by the client's consultant, and I'm the GC, and I see this is going to delay us by a month because of this design error by the consultant. I'm going to be looking at, well, how much is that delay going to cost us as a general contractor? We've got to have our site team here another month. We've got to have the trailers here another month. We've got our infrastructure here another month. There's generally a per diem cost of running the project. So if it's $10,000 a day and it's 30 days, that's $300,000 potentially for a claim. And it doesn't take that much on larger projects to get into that kind of money and lots more per day. So that would be a claim. Now, if it's reviewed by the consultant and it's accepted, then there would be a change order that would be prepared. It would be signed off by the owner. We would have it signed off, and now the contract amount has changed by that $300,000 as an example. This is a whole area unto itself. Like I mentioned at the end of lecture 6A, it can be an area of expertise. There's forensic consultants that this is all they do. If you want to have a little bit of fun, you can look up Revay and Associates, R-E-V-A-Y. They're a consulting firm, and they specialize in this. And they can be hired by contractors. They can be hired by owners. And what they really do is they look at and they do forensic analysis, and they help prepare claims because they can really look at the documentation, the schedules, the updates, the contemporaneous information, and validate or refute the validity of claims. And so it gets to be quite a legal endeavor and process that construction companies can get easily involved in. And so you have to really understand how the whole systems work and the project management aspects work, and you have to have really excellent documentation of how this project actually was built, how it was planned to be built, and what kind of interruptions had what kind of impacts on the work to be done. So construction delays come into that. And some of the reasons, to differing site conditions, pretty much for what we were just saying in lecture 6A on what causes change orders, right? And so you get these miscellaneous factors. Of course, you get unusual weather events that also have impacts on the project. And depending on the contract, depending on the province, you can interpret the information certain ways, but there's typical ways that claims get laid out. They have what they call excusable, non-compensable, and excusable and compensable. They have force majeure type delays that come out. They have non-excusable or inexcusable delays. That's where it's the contractor's fault. They delayed the project. Excusable, compensable would be the owner's consultant caused the delay in a design bid build project. A excusable non-compensable would typically be like a force majeure event, some sort of extreme weather event or other factor. So just to quickly give you sort of some guidelines on construction delays. And so that gets worked out in the system, and it depends who caused the action or omission. Was it the owner? Was it the consultant? Was it the GC? As a result, you might get extra time but no money. That would be excusable, non-compensable. Or the contractor must be reimbursed by the owner for reasonable costs incurred by the contractor result. That would be excusable and compensable. And as I said, if the contractor caused it, well, that's inexcusable. You better fix it. So force majeure event like Fort McMurray, the fire up in Fort McMurray a few years back, COVID-19, good examples of force majeure events. Project closeout processes. So let's get into that a little bit. You know, if you want to be effective at closing out a project, you want to start at startup. So remember we at lecture 6A, we talked about project startup. Well, I would start planning for closeout at project startup. So I'd want to know exactly from the specifications, what are the requirements? I'd be looking at the general requirements. Is it a lead project? What are the commissioning requirements? Is there a third-party agent? I'd want to make sure that that information is being gathered so that we have all our ducks in a row when it comes to project closeout, and so that it's like dominoes, they all start to fall in our favor because we've got our ducks in a row and we're set to go. Takes a lot of effort to do that early on and throughout the project. If you're in the commissioning stages, you want to make sure you've gathered all the proper documentation as the project subcontractors were doing the work, and that you know exactly what's going to be tested by the third-party testing agent, and that you've had prior testing so that it'll pass the testing the first time they come, and that you've got a little bit of buffer time in case it doesn't. So there's all of these things that come into play with that. And you know, there's a number of points, punch list or deficiency list. That's what we look at, all the things that are left to do. So you try to minimize that as you go. Anything that can be done should be done as the project proceeds. Don't leave it till the end. You're always going to have things at the end that you have to do, but you want to minimize the length and depth and breadth and cost of the deficiency or punch list. So you want to do those very, very carefully. You want to set up a listing of them, and then you want to have a checkoff system. Productivity software such as Procore, the other programs have excellent punch list sort of ways that you can have pictures. You can assign it to the particular contractors that's supposed to fix it. They go fix it. They take a picture of it fixed. You go inspect it. You sign it off. Very quick, efficient methods of doing that. But you got to organize that. And remember from lecture 6A, at startup, you're organizing your systems of how you're going to use it. So you're already setting up for how you're going to close out the project. Commissioning is like a whole huge subject unto itself. It's kind of gotten contractors really nervous over the last 25 years, and it's ramping as we speak because the level of complexity in building systems has escalated tenfold over the last 25 years. When you have different systems that have to talk to each other, it becomes more complex to ensure that they actually talk to each other properly. You have to make sure that things like for occupancy, that the elevators return to the first floor when the alarms go off, that they don't go to the floor where the fire is, and things like that have occurred. And so these systems have to be tested and made sure that they're functioning properly. And that's the whole commissioning program and inspection process that takes place. And that has to pass, and all the documentation has to be in place. Training materials for the facilities managers has to be done. The training of the facility managers has to have been done. Meet all occupancy required. Occupancy simply means that the building can be used by the occupants safely. So it's not just completion of the building, that the occupants can use it safely. So George Brown College, Building E, when we were constructing that. And I remember we were very close of not getting occupancy in time. We did. We had to have some temporary railings in a few spots and different things like that. It all had to be approved and passed, and you had to have occupancy before you have students in that building. Substantial completion kind of goes with occupancy. You're not going to get substantial completion if you don't have occupancy. So substantial completion means the building can be used for its intended purposes. Like you could get occupancy without maybe having substantial completion. So for example, the building is safe, the fire alarms, fire systems, elevator systems, railings, all of those elements are deemed to be safe. But maybe in the classrooms you don't have the projection units, and you need the projection units to run the class. So I might not be willing to give substantial completion in that case because I can't run the classes the way I would want to, or the Wi-Fi systems and the projection units aren't working properly. You can probably get occupancy, but not substantial completion in that case. So that's giving you sort of a sense of the difference with it. It gets a little bit more complicated, the definition of substantial completion, but it really is a trigger too with schedules as well. It ensures that with a schedule that if you hit substantial completion, that generally is a trigger point that says you're no longer responsible for liquidated damages. I say generally, there's always these minute exceptions, but it's a good target, and you want to have that as a line item in your schedule that, boom, we hit it on this date. Final completion is everything between substantial completion and final completion, because you can have all these little outlying things, and then sometimes it can take you months to finalize and finish them because maybe there's one part that's got to come in from somewhere, but it's nothing of significance. So that's in the final completion aspects. Or maybe you've got to plant a few trees or put a little bit of sod down if there's a little bit of work left to do in that area, but everything else can be done, right? So, and final completion means that everything is signed off and all the project closeout requirements are met, and the final payment is made from the client to the contractor. All the release of all the lien holdbacks is done. That's your final completion. Project is done. Nice when it is. So project wrap up and turnover, reconcile all outstanding accounts, as I was saying, close out sub-trade accounts, that way you get the release of all the holdback monies, complete verification of all mechanical, electrical systems, obtain the warranty certificates, again that would be all in the closeout documentation, building permits signed off, submission of maintenance manuals, as I mentioned, as-built drawings. And as-built drawings are a lot more complex today, especially if it's following a BIM model. The building may be going to what we call 6D of BIM, where you're turning over the as-built database for the project. And it's got a listing of all the components and parts, and it's in a database, and the 3D model has been updated. And that's that turnover process. So it's an important part of the project. You've got, like I said, the warranties, who's going to be, when the warranty starts and when it finishes. So typically the warranty period starts at substantial completion because the owner's using it for its intended purposes. And if it's 1 year, then that's the time period from then to then. That's another reason why it's important to get to substantial completion sooner, because if it takes you 6 months longer and you've got certain things installed, manufacturer's warranty may get expired, but your warranty has not. That could be a problem. So extended warranties, there may be requirements for that, and you'll have a letter of warranty saying from this date to this date. So 1 year is pretty standard in low-rise residential and condominiums. It's a 7-year warranty period. It's a stepped warranty period. That's under Terion warranty program. So you can look that one up too. That's for any condominium buildings or housing, and that is a third arm separated from government, but it's actually now more managed within the government envelope. And in Ontario, if you're going to build houses or condominiums, you must be registered builder with Terion warranty program. You have no choice on that. And so that's what I wanted to cover, giving you the last bits of sort of the project management aspect. No point running the project beautifully and then at the end messing everything up. Project closeout's very important. Same thing with your schedules. Nobody gives you a gold star for being on time 90% of the project. If your commissioning process gets delayed, you don't get occupancy, and the project is delayed, but you are on time for 23 out of 24 months, nobody gives you a gold star. Everybody just says it's a disaster and the project finished late. So you got to take these things very, very seriously, and you got to take project closeout very, very seriously. So you start the planning for project closeout early, and that's a key point, and you manage it through the whole building process. And it's an optimistic view. When I start a project, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to finish the project, and that's a good way to think, I think. I've already got a vision of everybody occupying the building, we've been paid out, everybody is happy, and then we work towards that vision, the goal. So, I'm Tom Stephenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and bye for now. We'll see you next time.